Hi guys, hope you're well. I've not done a video for a while because I've got so many other things on the go, and my little Aprilia decided to break down the other day, so I've got to rebuild that. I think it's got severe lack of compression, so I'm going to have a look at that. But anyway, this is the big bearing L400, and as Dennis Dempsey would say, Houston, we have a problem. Now, I've run probably about 4 or 5 tanks through this, only little tanks, but it's been going quite well. It's in the Swamp Dog. This is my other truck, it's the Hilux, but more on that later. But it's been going quite well. Mixtures, sort of one day it's spot on and the next day it's not. I don't know why it keeps changing, but I might do, and you might know after this video. Now, as you can see, I've got it apart again, and it isn't a broken crankshaft this time. I thought it was because the whole of the flywheel was wobbling around and it just looked like it had broken, but it was still running. So I thought it can't be broken because it's still running. So what the hell was wrong with this? So when I come home, I stripped it down. And I think, what have we got? I think you can probably see I had to remove the rear bearing retainer, which is that. Not quite easy to get out, but this is what I found. Now, this is what's left of the rear bearing. I'll show you. Can you see? That is what I have left of the rear bearing. I can't find a ball anywhere. There's nothing. I've got the 2 outer shields, and there's no ball. I can't find. There wasn't one ball bearing. I don't know where they're gone because they're not inside the engine because it can't get inside the engine. So where the hell they disappeared to, I do not know. But obviously, this bearing is not up to the job. It's one thing after the other with this engine. You know, I thought I was getting somewhere because I had even had a couple of runs around the track, and it looked pretty good, and it was changing gear. It sounded awesome. But as again, it's thrown up another problem. Now, the crankshaft doesn't look too bad. I mean, darker colour than all other ones, but I've got to get that out because the inside of the bearing, inside part of the bearing is still on the crankshaft, and I'm never going to get that off with it being in there. So I've got to dismantle this whole lot again. I can get the crank out, loosen off the rods and the caps, mark them all up so they all go back in the same place, which you must do. And I believe I'm going to have to probably grind this bearing, inner bearing race. I'm going to have to try and grind that very, very gently in half so I can get that off the crank. Now, when I was looking at this, I mean, this is the engine which Toyan sent me. You know, I know we had our ups and downs, but this is the new big bearing engine they've sent me in the front. Supposedly it's got a bigger bearing in there. Now, this is a new problem. I mean, I don't think there's many guys that have run the engine as much as I have. But I mean, you know, when I say as much, this is like probably about 7 or 8 tanks, if that, and they're only tiny tanks. I mean, you get about 2 minutes running on my tank. So this has not had a lot of running, and it's destroyed the rear bearing. Now, whether it's because it's under load, because it sits in the car like that, and as this comes out, I've got the flywheel which goes on there after the starter pulley, and I've got the clutch on here where you see these 2 pins. These are only the extractor screws to take the flywheel off. The clutch goes on there, and then as it comes out, it runs this clutch bell. And I've been experimenting with the gearing, and I've got it kind of bang on now that it's quite fast and it changes gear and all that. And it mates up to a Traxxas, I think it's a Revo box, or they're all the same, Traxxas box. 2-speed gearbox, they're terrific. But I'm wondering if it's putting like too much side load, because it runs on that gear there. But I've got it meshed really loose. Whether the engine's kind of moving in the chassis and putting a load on that gear, it could be, I don't know. But it just seems funny, because I'll change this gear because the other one chipped a tooth. They're very close to the edge of the gear there, and they tend to, the other one, it cracked one of the teeth. So this is a new one, so I've only just put it all back together again, and it didn't even do a half a tank with, and it just suddenly started making this horrible racket. And of course, when I saw the flywheel rattling around, I thought, oh no, not again. But in fact, it is the rear bearing. Now, what I'm thinking, you're probably ahead of me, what I'm thinking of doing here is, this is the bearing retainer, so you can get the crankshaft in and out. And this bearing, that fits in there, this size bearing. So I thought to myself, what is to stop me boring this out? I mean, the seal is destroyed. Maybe the balls have destroyed the seal. I'm going to have to get one of them from somewhere. But what is to stop me boring that out and fitting a bigger bearing in there, like they've done for the front? I don't know whether this bearing is, you know, the same size as the front one. I'm not sure. I've not measured it up. I have got another crank somewhere with a big bearing on, but I think I'm going to bore this out to accept another standard bearing. Go sort of another 3 or 4 mil bigger. Have more balls in the bearing, or bigger balls, or whatever, because they, you know, whatever was in here looks like it was quite small. So while I've got it out, I might as well replace the front one again. I've started running stainless steel bearings now, because, you know, it's like the nitro engines. You run them and you leave them for a little while, and what happens is the bearings go rusty. I mean, this is what I've done on the Twin. This is my Toyota Twin, and I've eventually, if you watch my other videos, I spent hours grinding the valves in to get compression on the, you know, on the engine, because it had no compression. Well, I've got it running on 2 cylinders now at last. I think it's probably the first time. I need a couple of new glow plugs, because one side you have to run it pretty lean to get it to keep running. So I haven't got any new glow plugs yet, but I think when I get a few glow plugs in there, it's going to be good. The other problem I had to do was the belt here had stripped the lower pulley. I can see that one just in there. So the lower, this was all shiny, had no teeth on it, so that's why I couldn't time the thing up. It would start okay, and then it would just go off. So I've got a new pulley on there, but the trouble is the belt is very, very worn, it's very slack. And I ordered 2 from Toyan, and I ordered from Sterling Kit. No, what's that? Engine DIY and Sterling Kit. I ordered the belts, and they both come, and they were too tight. They didn't fit. You know, you could sort of force them on, but it was no good. So now I've given up on that, and I've ordered 5 belts from the UK, and they should be here shortly, and I will give this a run, because I think this is going to go quite well at last, because it's, you know, a couple of plugs, I think, and a new belt, and it's going to be going really well. So we've got that kind of nearly sorted out, but, you know, this is such a shame with this engine, because, you know, it sounds absolutely fantastic. It's got plenty of power. It'll climb up a curb and stuff like that. But, you know, it obviously does need a centre bearing in there. You know, I'm not sure whether to look at it when I've got it apart and doing something like that. I've got so much else to do at the moment. It's like so much. I don't know whether to put it on a back burner and see if I can make something up. I don't know. But, you know, whether they've sorted this problem with the crank braking with that front bearing, I mean, I don't know. But I never thought it would do a real one like that. So maybe the engine's talking over, and it's like, you know, putting a lot of load on that rear bearing. I don't know, but it's you know, I was thinking of just making another plate up in the back and putting another, you know, a wider bearing in it or something like that. But I've got enough meat on there to bore that out, I believe, and get a nice bearing in there. Hopefully I can get an oil seal from somewhere, and I'll get this back up and running. So it's not as bad as I first thought. You know, I thought to myself, not another crankshaft, you know, after all this. But whether the crankshaft's going to hold together, I've not got much feedback from other people who have built them. I think Chris Barnes has put a centre bearing in this one, and he's had no problems. This probably is the way to go if I can find some time to fill it in. But I'm going to, you know, get that bearing in there. There's a lot of meat in there. I think I can get a decent bearing in there and replace the front one, stainless steel, and see how we go from there. So I've got to go now, guys, because it's a lovely day here in the UK, and I'm going to go out flying helicopters and planes. So hopefully in the next video we can get this thing back together again and try and make it reliable. You know, I might even make an alley flywheel, you know, so you've got less weight on the engine on that crank. So I'm going to sign out now, guys. So I'm going to finish my tea, and I'll see you in the next one.